Amen. So this week's parashat Chaye Sarah, there's a midrash in Bereshit Rabbah that brings that Sarah lived 127 years. How is it that if you fast forward to the time of Esther, Esther was a queen that ruled over 127 countries. Why 127? The midrash says, Tavo bat bita shel Sarah. Comes forth the great-granddaughter of Sarah that lived 127 years, and now the great-granddaughter, the descendant of Sarah, which is Esther, will rule over 127 countries. Asks Rabbi Sorosky in his book, he says, well, Sarah had many great-grandchildren and many offsprings and many generations of all of Am Yisrael. What's unique and special about Esther? So he wants to say that when Sarah was taken to Paro, they had to go to Egypt because they didn't have food. There was a famine, there was a drought in Israel, and Avraham and Sarah go to Egypt. When they arrive in Egypt, Avraham is still poor. When I say poor, he didn't yet accumulate all his wealth and who he became eventually. He had nothing. And Sarah was the most beautiful woman in the world. Aside from Chava, for Eve, she was the most beautiful woman that was ever created. So you take a couple where the wife is so beautiful and the husband doesn't really have much financial abilities or prospects, and then she's taken by Pharaoh, the richest man there ever is, and he offers her, he says, listen, I'll give you a good life. I'll give you a great life. And she says no. Why? As we see from the parasha, she was 127 years old, where she says, but she's 7 years like 20 years, and 100 years like 20 years. What does that really mean? That she would never sin. Even when she was 100 years, she was like a 20-year-old that never sinned. Why? Because in Shamayim, they don't record any transgressions until we're 20, until you're 20 years old, Betin Shalmala. And 7 years like 20 years for beauty. And although she was so precious and beautiful, and she had the ability to choose a great life with Paro, she said no. She never sinned. She was a tzaddiket. What's unique about Esther? She's the offspring of Sarah. There were many children and grandchildren and great-granddaughters for Sarah, but Esther also had the same opportunity. She was taken to the house of Achashverosh, and she said no to everything. She was pretty, very pretty, and she had the opportunity to go and have a lavish lifestyle, and she said no. And that teaches us in this week's parasha, Chaye Sarah, the life of Sarah. Not only a life, not only many years of life, but a real life of devotion to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to the real values of what the Torah wants us to invest in. And that maybe is the kickoff lesson, the opening lesson of this week's parasha. Wishing everyone a Shavua Tov u'Mevorach.